Hi, my name is Marie Mott, and welcome to the new Chattanooga Podcast. I'm a native and the people's candidate for mayor. I want to thank you for giving me a little bit of your time. I don't take that for granted. I hope that you will bring an open perspective and maybe be willing to think about some ideas with me. Solutions. We're going to talk about the problems, but we'll also talk about strategy. Because if we want to build the best city for absolutely everyone, that's not just a mayor's job. That's everybody's job. My name is Marie Mott, and I am honored to kick off this conversation and open up the corridors of my heart to bleed into the speakers a little bit how much I love my city. When I think about Chattanooga, it's not the C with the eyes that really give me a sense of pride about being from here. It's not the world-class internet. These are good things, some even relics of the past. When I think about what makes me proud to be a Chattanoogan, it's community. It's the people that I grew up with and the people that I went to school with and worshiped with, the people I swam with in summers at summer camp that makes our city a great place to live. It's the neighborhood store, the small business, the likelihood of maybe, if a mayor gets it right, having your first job in your neighborhood like my dad did when he worked at the Red Food Store, which was a grocery store on 3rd Street. Or maybe have such good jobs where you'll put in nearly 4 decades like my great-grandfather did, Francis Shropshire, who worked at the bakery right off 3rd Street, which was responsible for a ton of moon pies, all kinds of sweets, breads, rolls that you could ever want. And you could smell bread every single day that the bakery was open early in the morning. I had a bustling community and I had family in the community, which made coming up in Chattanooga even better. I worshiped in the community. So there was a spiritual connection that I have to my neighborhood. And there was so many resources for young people. We were just not allowed to be anything but great. We were affirmed. As a matter of fact, I sometimes wish that I could be invisible so that people would not report to my grandmother some of the unsavory things that me and other kids in the neighborhood would do. But everybody was responsible for the next person. Everybody pitched in. Everybody helped. We worshiped together. We played together. We worked together. We fellowshiped together. Sundays were soul food Sundays after spending a long time in church. And Fridays were everything. I mean, it was not uncommon to always have fresh fish permeating halfway down the street when I'm walking towards my grandmother's house and know that, oh yeah, she's in there frying catfish and the hush puppies are probably come up and my Aunt Pat is putting together the coleslaw and we got fries and Uncle Nathaniel or Uncle David, other family is going to fall through and get a plate and grandma's going to welcome them in and we're going to talk, smack, and have a good time. That's the kind of community I grew up in. We had not just community programs through Carver Center, which was 3 minutes away from where I lived, or with Miss Jackie up at Glenwood, and she still lives in Glenwood, by the way, who would make us read and make us swim so we were in good shape, and we would do activities and arts and crafts and team building exercises and eat lunch squatted up with one another. We always had people who would correct us with love, and embrace us with care. You could go to Orchard Knob Baptist Church, which had Girl Scouts Club and Boy Scouts Club run by the Bowies. And my cousin Portia was a Girl Scout with Miss Bowie. But there was also a lot of traditional arts training in the community. My brother, as well as my cousin Portia, were trained on how to play the piano from Miss Washington in Glenwood. And I learned along with my brother how to play the drums. And I even picked up not only set, but djembe right off Holtzclaw. So every facet of who I was and who the young people were in community was stimulated, encouraged, developed, sharpened. It was almost as if our neighborhood was determined that not only were people going to work in the community, but we were going to be our best. We were going to have a spirit of excellence. And the older I got, the more that I began to see that some of these resources began to disappear. Red Food Store would close, meaning that now we have a food desert. And it wouldn't be long before the bakery goes away too. And to you as a child or a younger person, the only thing you miss is the smell of the bread. But as you grow a little bit older and you begin to get civically engaged and you grow in your understanding of how government works and what it is supposed to do for communities, you realize that when the grocery store closes and the bakery closes, that means there's no more jobs on a very important street in your community. When the programming for young people who now had things to do all the time gets less and less and less funding, then those kids that were being productive, poured into by other civilians, had opportunities to get out of their comfort zone and to learn about their city's history and to explore and to engage with other youth in positive environments, meaning that they had family. Those programs go away and the funding goes away, which means now the community is not only ripe for violence and crime. Some of that is going to be because there's little economic opportunity, no programming, and now these folks are food insecure and looking for a place to belong. The older I got, the more I began to understand that this was by design. And that has a conspiracy type of feel to it. But the truth is, 10 people decide our city budget. Our mayor proposes not only how much money we're going to spend and where. The mayor sets the priorities for the city. And the council has the ability to make amendments and to approve. So if the jobs leave the community and one industry closes after another, at the same time you see more and more investment strictly downtown. If 10 people made a decision on less money coming to your neighborhood and more money downtown, would you say that that's design? If a mayor decides that children are no longer a priority and that we don't need robust programming for young people so that you can stimulate their intellectual, their gross motor functions, that you can allow them to be trained in leadership and build skill sets of being able to learn how to communicate, learning how to come into environments and work together as a team. If they don't know how to sit down up under people and take instructions, then what you have is young people now who are lawless in the community, and not because they want to be. It's because not only are the resources downtown, that's where the attention is too. There's an African proverb that says that a young person will burn down a village to feel its warmth if they are rejected. And so if all the eyes and the money are pretty much centralized into the downtown space, and leaving this ring of poverty in all kinds of neighborhoods and communities, rings of malinvestment in infrastructure in the community. If we spend more on things downtown and don't quite update the transportation and the jobs disappear, so the economic development and workforce development disappears in neighborhoods, that leaves a lot of people desperate. And one thing that Chattanooga doesn't like to talk a lot about is desperation is something that we are famous for. 1 in 4 children in Chattanooga are in poverty. We have 3 of the most impoverished zip codes. So when I say a zip code, that means neighborhoods. That means endless blocks of block after block, household after household of people living below the poverty line. That's 37406, 37407, 37410. People who are underemployed, and if they are employed, they're definitely not making enough money to make those 2 ends meet. All of these things are a byproduct of political decisions. And unfortunately, the small disappearance of jobs that I saw as a young lady growing up in the community and not really understanding who was responsible for not even saying anything about these jobs that are leaving, but certainly not really bringing any more jobs in after they go away. The sad part is that we have not stopped the bleeding of jobs out of Chattanooga and surrounding areas in this current time either. Tim Kelly stated when he ran for mayor for his first term that he wanted to build a middle class. I submit to you that it's impossible to do that, losing thousands of jobs every single year. Now, I'm a person who believes in the facts because the facts aren't emotional. It's black and white. And we keep track of all of the jobs that are brought into our area, as well as all the jobs that leave the area, not only through the Chamber of Commerce, but we have a section within the Chattanooga Times Free Press that catalogs all of this information as well. So in preparation for episode 1, I wanted to do, as I promised to always do, which is my due diligence, and catalog jobs that we have lost since 2022 on forward. And the reason why I wanted to start with 2022 was I wanted to give Mayor Kelly a grace card. Okay. Your first year in office is hectic. It's a lot going on, I'm sure, when you are transitioning staff and you're hiring people and you are probably putting out fires from the last mayor. You're setting an agenda. You're having to connect with city council persons. Some of them might be new as well. So you're learning a lot as the person in the position, even more than you probably should know as a regular civilian. And so I wanted to just give him a little breathing room and give him a free pass on 2021 and hold his feet to the fire from 2022 on forward. What you're going to hear, though, is that the more that we have pushed into the future, the more jobs we have lost, and in not only different types of industries, we have lost a massive amount of jobs in certain portions of Chattanooga. So let's get into it. In 2022, we had U.S. Express cut 70 jobs. Terminal Brew House closed, and then Hawker Power Source closed. But 2023, we had Syrup and Eggs. It closes. Steak and Shake in Hickson closes. Chattanooga Steam, which is a logistics company, offers buyouts. We have a Best Buy in Hickson that closes. We have CC's Pizza at Hickson closes. We have Popeyes on Brainerd and Southside close. We have U.S. Express cut staff 3 times in 2023. We have Tuesday Morning. It closes in Hickson. Hickson has taken a very big hit to economic opportunity and workforce development. Old Charlie's closes 2 chains in Chattanooga. The Blue Light Bar closes. Eureka Foundry. Many people have seen that foundry as you're coming around to get off on the exit for downtown Chattanooga and have probably thought that it was closed, but it actually wasn't. It was still employing people as of last year until it sold. So the foundry closes. Chattanooga Hardwood closes. Croft and Frost does a layoff and then they close. Barley Tap Room closes. River City Apparel closes. Big River Grill closes downtown. T-Mobile cuts 127 jobs. Burlington Coat Factory closes. Chattanooga Seafood closes. Cherry Street Brewing closes. Chattanooga Cookie closes. American Queen Voyages closes. Slim and Huskies. And I want to put a pin in this. Slim and Huskies was only on MLK for 2 years before it closed. That is huge. Okay. If you've ever been to a Slim and Huskies in any other city or state, and I've gone to the one in Nashville. I've gone to the one in Atlanta. I have never gone to a Slim and Huskies that has not had consistent foot traffic. And yet this one didn't even survive to year 3. Longhorn closes. Chattanooga Art Creation closes, and then the Walgreens closes on Macaulay. We have a lot of jobs being stripped out of Hickson, downtown Chattanooga, surprisingly, and the North Shore. Now, you would think that this is where the list ends, but it gets even deeper. Not only have we lost jobs in the downtown area as well as in Hickson, but we're losing different types of jobs. So when I talk about like syrup and eggs and steak and shake and Cece's Pizza, we're talking about service industry jobs. So people who bus tables, people who are hostess and hosts, people who have other jobs in the back of the restaurant, right? So service industry jobs go away, gutting the opportunity of people who are at the lower end of hourly wage, being able to have any way of taking care of themselves. We see family businesses that close, like Longhorn, and small businesses like Chattanooga Art Creation. All of these breweries, they close. Again, more service industry jobs and small businesses that have been owned in some of these communities by families for decades, no longer able to keep up and compete. But we're also seeing this massive pullout of other national chains from different parts of the community. But where it gets even worse is we talked about Eureka Foundry, which a foundry job is going to put you in the middle class, right? We talked about them pulling out of the downtown space, and that building sold for over $7 million. But we have lost, and get this, because you might take a deep breath out of shock. We lost in just 2023, 933 jobs simply for manufacturing. We had 7 manufacturing plants that have closed between Chattanooga and other surrounding areas. So along with Shaw closing and cutting 336 jobs, we had several Volkswagen suppliers, not Volkswagen that got the tax break, y'all, to create jobs. It's losing jobs. Tyson Krupp closed last May, cutting 156 jobs from our local economy. But we also have National Seating and Mobility lay off 108 workers. These are middle-class jobs. I could have sworn that the current mayor promised when he became mayor that he was going to build a middle class. Mr. Kelly, I would like to question, how do you intend to do that with middle-class jobs being slashed in 1 year, nearly totaling 1,000? And I want you to think about two very important things here. We're not just losing jobs in Chattanooga, we're losing jobs in surrounding areas. So other cities that are connected to Chattanooga, where people might live in Chattanooga but work in certain other places and, commute between to come back home. We're losing those jobs too, which means more people are going to be desperate and competing for jobs that we don't have. And if they're able to get some of these jobs, we've already witnessed. I would encourage you to go and read The Jobs Paradox by the Chattanooga Times Free Press journalist Joan McLean, which outlines how our mayors, along with the Chamber of Commerce and a lot of the good old boys, have what they call a secret formula, which is not so secret anymore, where the way that we negotiate with companies to bring jobs into the area, we cut off opportunity for people by negotiating that these companies not only pay workers less, but they also must get some level of a tax incentive or tax break to be able to bring the jobs here. As we can see, in the long-term trajectory of a city, that is a losing strategy. And it's a losing strategy because, in particular, the more that you chain people to being in industries where they are not required to have continuous education and developing skills, when those jobs leave, they're not prepared to be able to transition into anything else. But the real thing is, most companies don't want to invest in areas where people don't have a certain level of skill sets. And if you're not going to negotiate that, at the very least, they train people, you're hemorrhaging your labor force for the long term, not only economically, but how will people be able to make more money if they don't know anything else and can't do anything else? The reason why I wanted to highlight how many jobs that we're losing is not just to put this in a place of despair, but because I'm scratching my head as to why the current mayor has not positioned Chattanooga to be the economic bastion it could be for the southeastern region. And I'm going to outline exactly how. So some of this information was in my speech when I announced my campaign, which is on YouTube if you want to give it a listen. But the Biden administration has done two things as a byproduct, not only of the pandemic, but some learning lessons that came out of the pandemic that I don't think our municipality has learned yet. And that is, number one, when you don't have a way to plan for disasters and those disasters exacerbate issues that were already there that you didn't address, some of the ways that cities have had to mitigate some of the harm from not only the pandemic, but issues that have not been properly tackled in administrations past all over this country is we had a lot of money that Joe Biden sent to municipalities as a byproduct of the pandemic to really jumpstart municipalities and local economy. Some of that was CARES Act money. The other is the ARP money. And we've been allowed to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, not because of any innovation or strategy that's coming from a local leader. That is, we got to give the proper person credit. That is Joe Biden, who has sent billions to states and tens of millions to sometimes hundreds of millions to municipalities. And that money has to be spent by 2025. So however we spent that money, if we didn't position ourselves for the next thing, then we wasted a large opportunity to really suture some serious wounds in the community The other thing that President Biden has done is he has also understood that China and Russia are way too powerful. And we have to bring industries back to America. We failed in what we expected globalization to do. We gutted, and we have to take some responsibility for policies that led towards the deindustrialization of America. Those jobs didn't just evaporate. They went to China and Southeast Asia. And in particular, China not only took those jobs, but since we have destabilized American economies, at the same time, China has grown its middle class and its upper middle class and allowed millions of people to be able to access not only continued education, but opportunity. We made a very, very, very big mistake going global. So we have to bring more of these industries and jobs home. And one of the major reasons why is not just putting the American people back to work. That's at the forefront. The real reason behind this is national security. So you're only a superpower as long as you can continue to innovate, but you can't innovate ignorant. You have to have people who are educated and trained in your society to build things. And then there has to be some strategy to invest in certain areas of what are we investing in and where, what are we making and pushing into the world economy? How can we be a superpower if all of our semiconductor chips are being made across the world? Number one, that's not only going to put us at the mercy of other people in terms of America, but that's also going to keep us from being able to continuously innovate because we will have no knowledge of these technologies because we have never created them or developed them. So Joe Biden has decided that not only am I going to build what he calls a bottom up, middle out society in terms of economic prosperity and development. We've got to put people back to work, but we've got to put some strategy into this as well in terms of key industries that are going to continue to put the U.S. at the center of the future. So some of that is in supply chain with semiconductor fab, innovation, advanced manufacturing, and clean energy. Joe Biden is doing this so that we can continue to compete successfully against rising China. And so he decided in his infrastructure package to invest, and I'm going to go by the numbers because there's a saying, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. 53 billion is what he decided to invest in battery factories. And we've seen some of those jobs in terms of battery facilities come to Chattanooga. So that's one way Chattanooga is currently working on getting some resources in terms of economic development and jobs here in our city to stimulate the workforce and create opportunities. But I'm not the type of young lady that likes to put all my eggs in one basket. And if we didn't learn anything else from the pandemic, it is if we have another medical emergency of that magnitude, the first thing that's going to be impacted is tourism. So we might have use tourism as a crutch for the past, but we've got to learn how to walk in some new shoes. And it might hurt for a little bit because we've got to get accustomed to walking in these shoes. But I want to highlight some other industries, key industries where the Biden administration has made investment. $26.2 billion for auto and electric vehicle plants. $183.5 billion for semiconductor fab, $4.75 billion for biomanufacturing facilities, $9.7 billion for steel and aluminum, and $13.3 billion in other clean energy. I wanted to go a little bit deeper into the statistics, so I also pulled from the Federal Bureau of Labor that manufacturing alone has increased employment in America by 789,000 jobs since 2021. This led me to a very important question. If we're making and producing goods in America, what will Chattanooga make? How? And where? We have to attract small and mid-sized private companies to bring jobs into neighborhoods so that we can make some of these goods that have been outlined as key investment industries for this administration. We have to get with where this country is trying to go, which is we have to take people who have waited for generations to have opportunity. We have to take people who might have had jobs pulled and sucked out of their neighborhood. We got to put those people back to work. But we can't do like we've done in the past and put people in low-paying, dead-end jobs so that we can give another corporation a tax break. We've got to do what my grandmother would call burning the candle on both ends. If we want to bring people here, we've got to make some key investments in the skill sets of people here so that there's a workforce. We have to expand the conversation even about some of the things we're already talking about. I have heard for a long time, because we've had several studies about a railway between Nashville and Atlanta. While that is a wonderful concept, if we're making investments in steel and aluminum, it would make sense that we would pour the hot steel for the rails as the city of Chattanooga. And why would we do that? We have to shift our identity into something expansive. One of the things that I despise about how some elected, appointed, and powerful people in our city have kind of sold Chattanooga is that it's a quote unquote cheap place to live. Bring your business here. We'll pay the people less money and we'll give you a tax break to do it because this is a cheap labor force. I have never known anything to last long that was cheap. I've never known anything that was cheap that eventually didn't break. The people here are not cheap. We can have some of the best talent in the world right here. Chattanooga is already, in terms of innovation, not only are we innovating the fastest internet in the world, once we did that with fiber optics, twice we did that with quantum internet, which opens up the gateways for quantum computing. And to just make that make sense, in the 2025 economic strategy in China, quantum computing is one of the top five agendas for the nation of China. And here we are developing this stuff in our backyard like it's nothing. Do you understand what that means for us? We're innovating faster than the people can keep up with in terms of information and skills. So there's one level of innovation that is technology, right? But the other level that we have to tap into is human innovation. We've got to upskill our entire population to make them competitive in a country that is now bringing more industries back to America's shores. And we have to get in on taking a portion of that 789,000 jobs and securing those, not only just for Chattanooga, but the next mayor of the city of Chattanooga has got to be so progressive. We're going to have to sit down as a city, and we should have a regional convening with other mayors, the mayor of Dalton, Walker County, Georgia, Cleveland, Tennessee, Red Bank. All of these mayors should be sitting down to discuss how are we going to move forward in terms of innovation, technology, advanced manufacturing, and clean energy and supply chain. And how can we cross collaborate? So Chattanooga is not just bleeding jobs, but other places around Chattanooga are bleeding jobs too. So Chattanooga has got to stop playing small and bring some of that prosperity into our area and share that even with other places around Chattanooga. We've got to understand that success is a team sport. And if we want to have a city and a region that's equitable for all, then that means that we're going to have to work together, and we're going to have to promote one another, and we're going to have to see how we can collaborate to ensure that people are trained and ready for these high-class jobs that are coming back to our beloved America. And that's going to take a mayor who's willing to be something different and not always looking to the past for the best of what we have to offer. Chattanooga does have some elements for the past that I think we should embrace. And that is, we have always been an industrial town. And that doesn't mean that that has to be tied to being a dirty city, because we can be a industrial town now and have clean energy. How do we want to bring some of those green jobs, and may I even add some of those blue jobs that we can even create on our vast riverfront? 16.1 miles of riverfront that is ripe for economic opportunity. It's going to take a mayor that wants to try some new things and just see how we can stretch ourselves from the top down and the bottom up. My name is Marie Mott, and I just want to thank you for listening. I hope maybe I gave you some things to think about. The money is there. The resources are there. We just have to do something different. We are just like Tim Kelly, the CEOs of our destiny. And so we don't have to play small. We don't have to continue to do what's always been done. That's status quo. We've got to grow and stretch ourselves so that we can have a different future, where children are not in poverty, where homes are not languishing, where communities are vibrant, and people can be anything that they want to be. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the new Chattanooga Podcast.